Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous.
Look, my job in your life is to warn you when something dangerous is about to hit you. So this is an urgent update on something I've warned you about in 2 previous videos. The fact that there is now a new inquisition in the works. It's a cross between one of Joseph Stalin's purges and a Joe McCarthy witch hunt. And it may have begun early on Tuesday, April 9th, when Fox News reported that Attorney General William Barr revealed that he is reviewing the conduct of the FBI's original Russia investigation during the summer of 2016, following calls from Republicans to investigate the origins of the probe. The new inquisition may have gained steam that same day when William Barr appeared before a Senate committee. Barr admitted that he believed that American intelligence agencies had spied on Donald Trump and on his campaign well before the election of 2016. The Democrats on the committee were aghast. They made Barr take the word spying back. But yes, Barr believes there was spying. Why? It is part of the conspiracy theory of Trump and his followers. Again, Barr had fans in the Democratic press, in the mainstream media, and among Democratic political hands of all kinds. They were stunned. They shouldn't have been. It was all in Barr's 19-page memo, a memo we will get to in a second. The next hint that the new inquisition was underway came the day after Barr's admission that he was reviewing the origins of the Russian investigation and his accusation before the Senatorial Committee that America's intelligence agencies had been spying on the Trump team. It came on Wednesday, April 10th, when Donald Trump repeated a wild idea that he has promoted for years. On his way to his helicopter to head for a border wall appearance in Texas, Trump said, and I am quoting him, "After wasting all of this money and all of this time with people who were haters, people who worked on the Clinton Foundation, people who absolutely were haters of Trump, they found no collusion." Trump continued, "What has been found during this time are the illegal acts of getting this whole phony investigation started, and hopefully that's where people are going now. It was an illegal investigation. It was started illegally. Everything about it was crooked. There were dirty cops, bad people. You look at McCabe and Comey, and you look at Lisa Page and Peter Strzok. These were bad people. This was an attempted coup, an attempted takedown of the president. What I'm most interested in," Trump added, "is getting started on going back to the origins of exactly where this all started, because this was an illegal witch hunt and everybody knew it. And they got caught. What they did was treason. What they did was terrible." In other words, Donald Trump is obsessed with the idea that there has been a conspiracy against him ever since he declared his presidential run on June 16, 2015. Part of that conspiracy was orchestrated, he says, by Barack Obama, working with the crooked cops at the FBI. Obama, he has told audiences since 2016, wiretapped and bugged Trump Tower to spy on him. When Trump trots out this particular conspiracy theory, he often repeats his 2-year-old claim that Barack Obama's FBI used an intelligence dossier commissioned by Hillary Clinton's Democratic Party to mount a hoax, to pursue a phony accusation that Trump and his campaign were colluding with the Russians. Trump calls this a witch hunt, but he also calls it a crime punishable by death, treason. And the president and his followers want to lock him up. They want to see the people who created this so-called hoax behind bars. What's more, Trump says that the real Russian collusion was committed not by him, but by Hillary Clinton. And he says that Clinton's collusion with the Russians must be investigated. Why has the meaning of Donald Trump's accusation turned from a fantasy to a reality in the last few days? Why has the Trump purge, the Trump inquisition, taken another step toward interrogations, harassments, and handcuffs? Because Donald Trump now has the right man in the right place. He has a Grand Inquisitor willing, eager, and able to put President Trump's political enemies behind bars. That man is William Barr, the new Attorney General. Trump hated his former Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. Why? For not jailing his enemies. But William Barr is a man of a different ilk. To get Jeff Sessions' job, William Barr wrote a 19-page memo intended for Trump. In that memo, he declared the Mueller report and the Russia investigation bogus. More important, in that memo, Barr said that everyone else in America has misinterpreted the constitutional role of the Justice Department and the Attorney General. For generations, we Americans have been under the mistaken impression that the Justice Department and the Attorney General are rigidly isolated from the President. We Americans have believed that the obligation of the Justice Department and the Attorney General is to uphold the law, to defend the Constitution, and to work on behalf of the American people. Not so, said William Barr in this 19-page memo, this 19-page job application. The President is the executive branch of the government, said Barr. As Trump likes to put it, it's all him and his stable genius. And while he says this, he often points to his head, indicating his astonishing intellect. William Barr agrees that it is indeed all Trump all the time. Wrote Barr, the Justice Department and the Attorney General are mere sock puppets of the President. To use Barr's word, they are mere hands. The implication was that if he was appointed Attorney General, William Barr would regard it as his duty to read the mind of the President and to execute the President's will. Would William Barr consult daily with the great Trump to read his wishes? No, that's not necessary. All Barr has to do is read the President's tweets and his statements to the press, just like you and me, which means something profoundly dangerous. The wacko conspiracy theories in Donald Trump's tweets are about to result in a lock-em-up campaign that Trump has dreamed of for over 2 years. What clues are there? They're in William Barr's 19-page memo. Senators, congresspeople, and the news media have made a huge mistake in not reading that memo word for word. Why? In it, Barr said the President has the right to use the Justice Department and the Attorney General to investigate anyone he wants, whenever he wants. That right, said Barr, is absolute. What's more, Barr argued that the President's right to investigate and persecute anyone he wants is absolute even if it is born out of, quote, a malicious motive, period. Yes, Barr said that investigations born out of malicious motives are just fine if they come from the President of the United States, and that President is Donald Trump. And what is the ultimate justification for locking up a long string of Trump's artificial villains, from Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama to Nellie Orr? That's where the spying comes in, says William Barr in his 19-page memo. Let us say that an outgoing administration, say an incumbent U.S. attorney, launches an investigation of an incoming president. The new president knows that it is bogus, is being conducted by political opponents, and is damaging his ability to establish his new administration and to address urgent matters on behalf of the nation. It would neither be corrupt nor a crime for the new president to terminate the matter. In other words, let's say that Barack Obama's Attorney General, Eric Holder, launches an investigation of an incoming president, Donald Trump. To stop that investigation, it would not be a crime for the president to fire a head of the FBI. For example, James Comey. Look, the real story is this. In May 2016, a young foreign policy freelancer and advisor to the Trump campaign, George Papadopoulos, in the words of the New York Times, quote, made a startling revelation to Australia's top diplomat in Britain. Russia had political dirt on Hillary Clinton. About 3 weeks earlier, Mr. Papadopoulos had been told that Moscow had thousands of emails that would embarrass Mrs. Clinton, apparently stolen in an effort to try to damage her campaign. That's the end of the New York Times quote. The Australian diplomat apparently alerted his friends at the FBI, George Papadopoulos, in his new book, claims that in fact the Australian diplomat was an FBI agent trying to set him up. One way or the other, Papadopoulos' inside knowledge of a trove of emails from a presidential candidate in the hands of the Russians set off alarm bells in the intelligence community and provoked an FBI counterintelligence operation to see exactly what the Russians were up to. More specifically, to see what kind of campaign manipulation Moscow was trying to pull off. Meanwhile, the conservative Republican Washington Free Beacon chose a firm named Fusion GPS to investigate Trump, to find out the journalistically actionable facts, not made-up dirt, real facts. Eventually, the Washington Free Beacon abandoned this costly effort. Then the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee hired GPS for the same thing. In this case, it was opposition research. The pioneers in opposition research were right-wing Republicans who used distortions of opposition research to destroy the campaigns of Democrats like Michael Dukakis and John Kerry. For information on Trump and Russia, Fusion GPS went to the Russia expert who had run the Russian desk at Britain's fabled spy service, MI16. The FBI asked him to pick up whatever information he could on Trump's involvement with the Russians. Christopher Steele, the former MI16 Russian expert, got in touch with his Russian contacts and picked up the sort of information that intelligence agencies regard as tips, leads, and clues, the sort of information intelligence services feel duty-bound to follow up on and verify, or discredit. What Steele discovered alarmed him. He had worked for the FBI, so he alerted his FBI contacts to what he found. And the alarm drove him to fly to the United States and to share his concern with a few press people. The FBI works counterintelligence. It labors to follow up on leads like Steele's in order to keep America safe, in order to stop attacks before they can begin. So the FBI opened a counterintelligence investigation to figure out exactly what the Russians were up to. If you want to understand why the Steele data scared the pants off of the people in the FBI, just Google the Steele memo and read it for yourself. It is highly credible. Steele's main finding was that the Russian government had been attempting to cultivate Donald Trump as an asset ever since 2008. Yes, Donald Trump. Steele's dating would turn out to be incorrect. The Russians have been cultivating Donald Trump ever since 1987, when they gave the young real estate developer and publicity hound and his model wife from the Russian-ruled Czech Republic an all-expense-paid trip to Moscow. And Trump paid off as an asset even way back in the late 1980s. Within 5 weeks of his return from his all-expense-paid Moscow junket, he put out ads in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Boston Globe calling on the U.S. to do exactly what Russia wished for most, to weaken the West. Trump called on us all to take apart the Western alliance, civilizational suicide. He called on us to achieve what the Russians with their armies, their tanks, and their fighter jets could not achieve, the slicing of the very tendons of the alliance of the free world. In other words, for 32 years, Russia has been manipulating Donald Trump. There is no collusion. There is no collusion necessary. Donald Trump is in love with Russia. For 39 years, he has been married to women from the former Soviet Union. He mounted his Miss Universe pageant in Moscow in 2013, and he desperately tried to get Vladimir Putin's attention. Now that he's in the White House, Donald Trump helps turn Vladimir Putin's wildest dreams into realities, all without collaboration or consultation or coordination. For 32 years, Trump has been what Republicans and conservatives in the 1950s used to call a Russian dupe. Trump has been what the Russians call a useful idiot. But that is a story William Barr will never believe. William Barr is convinced in his bones that there is a Democratic Party plot against the great American savior, Donald Trump, a plot that must be stopped. And Barr is convinced that he, Attorney General William Barr, must pay careful attention to the president's tweets and turn what some of us would regard as ridiculous, paranoid, malevolent fantasies into investigations, prosecutions, and jail time. In other words, William Barr has offered himself as the ultimate instrument for a new Stalin. He has offered himself as the perfect weapon for a president raised on tales of how to mount a purge, how to mount a witch hunt. Where did Donald Trump get his master classes in witch hunting? From 20th century America's grand wizard, chief sorcerer of witch hunting, the man who orchestrated the McCarthy witch hunts of the 1950s, Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn, the architect of the McCarthy show trials and purges. Roy Cohn, the man who schooled a man of profoundly low intellect and even lower moral compass, Donald Trump. William Barr has sworn to act as Donald Trump's sock puppet. With that, Trump is finally positioned to outdo even Joseph McCarthy. This is Howard the Humongous, speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make. Or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for that insidious, slimy, sleazy, sneaky little off button.